Hello, everyone. Jenny Mello here. I have Lana joining me today from support. I'm sure you've all spoken with Lana before. She is going to be helping me out with a lot of the navigation today. So you may or may not hear her chime in, but I do have her in the room with me today. Hello. All right. So thank you all so much for joining us today. Seriously, we know you are so busy. You've got a lot going on. So we really appreciate you taking the time out of your day. Seriously, thank you very much. Okay, so if you've been to a Lunch and Learn before, you know the first half, we're going to run through some examples and we're going to open it up at the end for some live question and answer. So what I want you to look at is your GoToMeeting control panel on the side. There's going to be some handouts in there for you to download from today's session, and there's also that questions box down at the bottom. Please use that to enter in any questions you have along the way. That's what we're going to open up at the end. There's also a little bit of a new survey at the end, so if you have a few minutes to spare, please check it out. I've got some new questions in there for you. It's just on ways that we can continue your Compass education, your Compass development, and I'd love to get some feedback from all of you. So please, if you have a moment, check it out if you can. I'd really appreciate it. All right, so who should be here? Luckily, all of you. You're all in the right place because the add-in for Compass works with all versions you have, so no worries there. The only person I caution is the Compass add-in whiz. I know you exist. I know you're out there. I've seen a few of you. You've shared your reports with us. We know what you can do with this feature, and it's really some amazing stuff you're doing. But for the majority of you, for everyone else, this is hopefully just going to get you to know a little bit more about what the add-in can do and maybe get rid of any of that mystery you may have had about it. So why are people using the add-in? The Compass add-in is a feature that allows you to directly connect Excel with Compass for some enhanced reporting. We know Compass is great. It's got a lot of data in it. There's over 30 different reporting templates that you have plenty of customization, but you may find yourself wanting kind of a mix and match with the data type. Maybe you want more than one type of that data on a report, a little bit more than what the directory is giving you. There's also, of course, the formatting that you have with Excel. You have an audience, they're accustomed to a certain view, and you want to make sure you're presenting in that view. So you already have all of those reports formatted, ready to go, but the data's not fresh. You're exporting the same reports from Compass each month, and you'd really like a way to get that automated. So that is just what we're going to do today. We're going to build some reports from scratch, show how we can mix balance types, mix some data, compare some what-if plans. Can we layer the Excel add-in into some existing reports you already have built? And lastly, we're going to take a look at the cash flow modeling workbook. Is there a way we could potentially automate some of your stress events? All right, so let's get started. I am going to jump over here into a blank workbook. Nothing exciting here. Starting with a brand new, fresh workbook. So Lana and I have learned through talking with those of you who use it regularly that mixing balance types and account details was most popular. So we're going to build a report that does a little bit of everything. Looking at this blank, not special workbook, I'm going to choose add-ins from the top menu bar, and here you're going to see Compass with a drop-down menu. And clicking on that, we're going to choose the first option, Build, Edit a Plan List. And you're going to say yes to this pop-up you get. This is the tab, it's going to call it Compass Plans, where we tell Excel exactly what Compass plan we want to hook up with, and we're going to add our regular live data plan here. We pop it in, we hit OK, and we're done. Now, every single add-in formula we build wants to know what Compass plan do I need to pull from, and it's going to ask you for a numerical value. This is the column that is referring to, column A. What plan number is next to the plan you just pulled in, because that's the number you're going to use for all your formulas. So we're going to use plan number 1. So perfect. Let's move to sheet number 1 here. We'll get out a blank spreadsheet. Now we can't just automatically start pulling in balances. we need to build the components of what the formulas require first. So first thing I want to mention is if you know ahead of time the cell that you want your data to start showing up in, click on it first. It's much easier to click on the cell first before you start populating the data. So we're just clicking on A1 here. All formulas need a date. What date do you want to pull from? And if you want to automate your date, you can use the function key in your formula bar. There's a user-defined menu option you can choose where you're going to get everything that says CMP. This is Compass. This is all information you can pull about the Compass database, one of them being last update. So we're going to choose that. It's going to ask, there's that plan number question. We want plan number 1 to pull from and hit OK. It may not automatically format to a date, so you just use your regular Excel formatting, and we're just going to choose the default to make it easier. But actually, I've been doing some reforecasting, so I want to look at a year-end report. So you can also manually type your dates in. We're going to manually type this in. It's static now. It's never going to update, but that's okay because every time I update this report, I want it to reflect year-end. I'm going to move over to cell D5 for a minute here because there's a few other helpful pieces in that FX button area. These user-defined options are not required for building formulas, but sometimes it's nice just to have extra automation in here. I'm going to choose institution name and link it to Compass plan number 1. So whatever I have my name plan in Compass will show up in my report heading. So if we add an and sign or we change it to the, I don't need to go through all my reports and update them. It's already linked from Compass to look there. Okay, now let's move back over to column A. The second thing every formula wants to know is what kind of balances do you want in your report? What are you looking at? Well, we want to build an income report. So back up in the top menu bar, there was data item list. We're going to click there and it's going to pull all of these different data codes and balances and ratios that we're able to get from Compass. Now, income, as you know, when you do your download, income is all downloaded into your projections for your accounts and your categories. So the data items we want is category account data. Here is a list of all of the different balance types that you will find in your account projections. What we're going to look for is income. So we scroll down, we find income, we click on it, and Lana, what I'm going to have you do is click the assign down arrow. So what assign down means when there's an assign right arrow, that just means what cell do you want to have highlighted next after I pull in what you just asked me. Well, if you notice, I told Lana, I said, hey, please pull in some income, but it pulled in the code. The formula needs a code in order to build the pieces. But sometimes codes don't make much sense to us. We don't remember what that code represents. So we also want to pull in the description of what that code means. So we uncheck the box that says, no, don't substitute the descriptor. Don't just give me the code. I now want to assign down and pull in the labeling of what that code means. So now anytime I have to come back to this spreadsheet, I exactly know that that's my income code. And we're going to do the same thing with expense. We're going to bring in our expense code. We're going to bring in the description. So when we come back to this report, we know what those two codes are. Perfect, and we're done there. That's all we want on this report. So now, still staying in column A, I need to start pulling in some of the accounts or the categories that I want income for. So we skipped over this option last time, but now we're going to come back to category account list. This is set up exactly like your chart of accounts. When you open up your balance sheet, you see everything falls in line with exactly how it is in Compass. So I don't want all my individual account detail. I want some yellow folder categories. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go down the line here and I'm going to find the accounts that I know are interest bearing. They've got some income in there, and I'm just going to pull in those high level categories with a total. Now again, we just brought in a bunch of codes to column A. I want to know what accounts do those codes mean. So we uncheck the box to substitute our descriptors, and we can start bringing in all these codes. Now, Lana, if you don't mind, move a few rows down, and let's do the same for some liabilities. Not only do we need some interest income, we also need our interest expense. And let's keep it easy. Let's just do high-level interest-bearing deposits, bring in the code, and bring in our total. And now let's bring in the descriptor. We'll do interest-bearing deposits, and we'll bring in our total. So income statement, very important. We're building an income report, so let's go down there. We'll open up the income statement. Again, just like your chart of accounts. We're going to pull in high-level non-interest income, non-interest expense. No one cares about all the individual account details there. So here's where we really get the pleasure of the mixing and matching. As high level as we want, get a little bit of detail where we need it, and let's hit done. This looks perfect for right now. Now, one thing I want to point out, if you noticed when she was pulling in the total category folder levels, it brought it in as total assets and liabilities. Well, we know this is an income report, and yes, interest income sits in the assets on the balance sheet, and interest expense sits in the liabilities on the balance sheet. Just because that's the description it brought in, it is not hard-coded to look at that description for your formula. It just cares about the code in column A. So type over these account names. If it should read a little bit different or say a little bit different than what it does encompass, you have freedom to rename that description so on your report you know what it truly is. So, okay, we've got the components of what we need to start building a formula. So let's now start getting some data in here. What we're going to do is go back up to our Compass menu, and we're going to choose the Data Wizard to pull all of these pieces together. Now let's look at this Data Wizard for a minute. This is great. We insist that you use this Data Wizard anytime you want to build a new formula. This will help guide every step of your formula along the way. So you can be assured you're getting things in the right place and it's in the right order you need. Once you become more familiar with it, there's definitely some shortcuts we're going to show you, but when in doubt, use this wizard. So the first question on the wizard is the data reference. What balance types are you building on this report? We know the data we pulled in was for income data, so we're going to click on our income code. But if you're ever not sure, that income code is a D code there. Look at the bottom of the data wizard box. It's going to give you a little bit of a cheat sheet here to show you. Your code has to begin with D, G, O, P, etc. in order for it to fit in this box. So we have a D code, perfect for a data code. It can go there. Now there's some little radio buttons right below it. We're going to default to monthly value, but know that you can also get year-to-date information in here as well. So just click on the bubble if you want it to be year-to-date instead of month-to-date. Okay, the next question, pretty self-explanatory. What date do you want it in? We're going to click on our year-end date because we're looking at a reforecasting report, so that's what we're going to reference. And then the next thing is the category account reference. What category or accounts do we want income for? These are all going to be codes that begin with a C or an A. And in column A, we pulled in all of our category codes, so we're going to click on that first one for cash and due. And there's that plan number again from the Compass Plans tab, so we want it to be plan number 1 and hit OK. All right, let's click on that formula real quick to see what we just did. In the formula bar, it starts with CMP. Anytime you see that, you know it's a Compass add-in formula. This data is coming directly from Compass. For those of you using the liquidity template, I'm sure you see this CMP formula all over the place. Okay, the second thing about this formula is the dollar signs. You see a lot of dollar signs in here. The dollar sign means that that cell is locked. The formula is frozen. It's always going to look at those cells. So if I know, hey, I want income for my investments, my loans, my total as well, naturally you think you can just drag that formula down. But look what happens when we do that. You drag the formula down, because those cells are locked, it's not changing the data. We're always looking at cash and due. So we want to unlock the cells by deleting the dollar sign in front of the column or the row that we no longer want to be blocked. So that row 7 there was locked. It was saying I always want to look at that, but that's not true. We want to look at row number 8, row number 9, row 10. So we've deleted the dollar sign in front of the 7, and now we can drag that down. And actually, Lana, I'm going to have you drag it down to interest-bearing deposits. Keep dragging it down. So perfect. So now that we've unfrozen that cell, we can carry this formula down, and we can see all of the balances for the rest of the income. Now, there's another way that we can update the formula if you forget about these locking dollar signs. There is a drag and drop feature that you can still use. We've highlighted our interest-bearing deposits. We know that's an expense account, but it was actually locked to look at the income code in A2 there. But what we're going to do is click on it and drag it down to A4 to say, now I want you to look at the expense code. Now go ahead and drag this down for the rest of the expenses, and we've now got it updated to the new feature. Okay, now non-interest income, the one we've got down there, same drill. If I don't remember dollar signs or locking, I'm just going to click on that expense code and bring it back up to income. And now we've got all of the formulas referencing the cells we need to. So can you use a dollar sign to unlock something and carry it over? Can you drag and drop to the code that you need to? If you have no idea what I'm saying and it just confuses you, go back to that data wizard. It may take you a little bit more time at first, but at least you can be assured for yourself, I am building this the right way, I'm getting the right information that I need. So we've just built an income report here, but you know what? I'm deciding last minute it's very fitting to include some yields and costs because that goes right along with income. So let's add that to our report. Yield and income, it's what we find in our data item list. It's data that comes from our account projections. So we're going to go to category account data, and we're going to scroll through to find our yield code. Now we're going to populate the code in, assign to the right, so we can immediately bring in the descriptor. And we're going to do the same thing for the cost right below it. So remember, these category account data, you can pull in any data that you would normally find within your account projections area. Let's go ahead and hit done there. Now we're going to go back to the data wizard because I don't remember what do I need to copy over, so let's just start fresh. The data reference, the D code I want is now going to be for my yield. My date is going to be the same. Category account reference, we're going to choose our total income because we just want one yield, but you can get just your loans, just your investments. You can get as much detail as you want here. We put in the same plan number and we go ahead and hit OK. Let's do the same thing to the cost. Again, I don't remember. Can I drag this over? Is everything going to update right? So let's just use the data wizard so we know we're pulling in all the right pieces as needed. Perfect. All right, I'm hitting done here. Now I'm looking at this income statement report and I see a big piece we're missing. We need some net income in here. Let's just look at our bottom line net income to finish this off real quick. We're going to go back to Compass to our data item list. This time I want you to hold for a minute and look here. Not everything is going to be found in that category account data. As you know, net income is not a line item we find in the account projections. Not something that's tied to a GL number when you do a download. It's a number that's calculated based off of everything else, and it gets recalculated every time you compute the plan. So another place to find a lot of these D codes is compute summary data. This is the place to go to find all of the numbers that aren't in the projections, but you find them in all the reports and they get refreshed when you compute. So right here we have net income. Same drill, we're going to bring in the code first, then we're going to bring in the description of what it represents. And now we're going to go back to the data wizard to build this formula. Now when I'm looking at the data reference, we were always grabbing D codes before, but when I look at this net income in column A, it starts with an S code. Looking at that data wizard giving me my guidance, S is still an applicable code to use in this spot. So perfect. I'm going to click on that, leave it at monthly value. The date will be the same, but look at this now. The third question has changed. Because net income just doesn't sit in one category or in one account, it's asking you a different question. Do you want projected or budgeted data for this? You'll see this a lot when you're pulling in ratios and stuff because it just doesn't come from one account. So when you read the bottom there, it says use a 0 for projected data, use a 1 for budget data. We want projections / actuals. It's a reforecast report, so we're going to type a 0. Only if we want locked budget information do we do a 1. Perfect, same plan number. We want it to be plan number 1, so we go ahead and hit OK. So this is some pretty raw data here, the numbers as is. So the last thing you're going to want to do is some formatting. That's what Lana's going ahead and do here. You know how they like to see comma-separated values, how many decimal points do you need to go out, what totals or line items maybe should be bolded. Do I want to rearrange some things if I decided maybe the order should be a little bit different? So now it's all the cosmetic stuff. Here's the regular Excel formatting features that you take to this report now to make it your own. So perfect. When this report is ready to be printed off and shared with the group, all you have to do now is hide column A. They don't want to see all the formulas. They don't care about all that stuff. They just want the numbers. So now you've made an automated report that looks the way they want it to look. It has all the different balance and data types you want to see in there, but you just hide all of the extra stuff. So now people focus on the numbers. You just worry about those formulas anytime you need to come back and edit it. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's open up that column back again, because now that we've showed some mixing of account levels and mixing of different datas, let's talk about comparing some what-if plans. If you aren't doing so already, which I know most of you are, let me show you my live data folder here down at the bottom. Here are a couple what-ifs I built. In Compass, we create different folders for our Compass plans when we want to test out new business, we want to test out changes we're anticipating, we want to see what that does to our bottom line, but we don't want it to impact our live database. So we take a copy, we put them in these what-if folders. We can add any different Compass plans we want to our add-in formulated spreadsheets. So what I want to do is go back to the Compass Plans tab. We're going to go back to our Build Edit Plan list. And now we're going to highlight row number 2. We're going to browse to my first what if, and we're going to add it to row number 2. And we're going to highlight number 3 and do my second what if to plan number 3. And you could keep going on and going on for however many plans you have. But when I hit OK to this, look at column B. As long as those what-if plans always stay in that same folder location, all of your spreadsheets will automatically populate with whatever data is sitting in that plan path. Perfect. Now let's go back to our report, sheet number 1. I love this information we started with. It's a great mix and match, but now I want to layer in some of my different what-if scenarios to see how they compare to each other. So the first thing is the column heading. We want to know what plan we're looking at. So we're going to take this Compass formula and just drag it over to the right here. If you look in the formula bar, it's saying Compass institution name, but it's pulling it from plan 1. All we do now is change that to a number 2 and change the next one to number 3. So now it will update with those plan names. And if you remember from my reforecasting Lunch and Learn, I like to rename my Compass plan actually in the database for the what-if plan it represents. So when I'm looking at reports or now when I'm pulling in descriptions to the add-in, I know exactly what numbers and balances this what-if plan is referencing. Okay, so now let's look at that cash formula that we have for our live plan. We're going to take it and drag it over to the right, just like we did for the institution name. Looking at the formula bar, all the pieces are perfect except for that plan number. So now we just update it for plan number 2, update it for plan number 3. You see those numbers instantly populate? It knows right away what's already in there, so those numbers automatically pop in. And let's take this and let's drag this all the way down to interest-bearing deposits. Now, just like before, if we don't want to use the data wizard, maybe I've gotten a little bit comfortable, I'm just going to drag the formula around to now look at my expense code instead of my income code. But again, if you're not comfortable, if you're not sure, just go back to the wizard, recreate it. It doesn't take very long at all. And let's drag this through to non-interest expense, please. Okay, so majority of the balances are now in here because just by dragging and dropping, it's looking at the right plan number and all the rest of the pieces are the same. But now the yields, the cost, the net income, we didn't get those just by dragging down. So we're going to drag those to the right, just like the institution name. All we have to do is update the plan number it's referencing. I don't want to go back to the data wizard. I don't want to have to re-pull everything from scratch. I know every piece of this will be the same except for the plan number. So that's perfect. Do that. And now it's all updating. Net income, same drill. We're going to take that and drag it over to the right to get the numbers for just that plan. Perfect. Okay, now let's some formatting. We know we have column D formatted exactly how we want it to look, so we can highlight it and use our format painter and now copy it over E and F. So now everything looks the same. It's all consistent. We can see side-by-side rows of exactly how those plans are performing, what's our best benefit, things like that. Clean some things up where you know you don't need it. Use some regular Excel formulas. We have all the data automated now. Let's build some variances. Maybe we want to see how does that rising plan compare to the live data plan, or how does the falling plan compare to the live data plan without me having to eyeball it and see what's higher, what's lower. Let's just build in a variance column using basic Excel formulas that we can just carry down and format how we want to get the instant view of what plan benefits us the most and what position and things like that. So this is great. This is a report from scratch, blank, mix and match levels of detail, mix in your data types, and layer in different what-if plans for comparison for presentation purposes. There's another piece to this. I'm going to go back down to my live data folder, and I'm going to bring up a file I have called Compass Export. I know a lot of you aren't building from scratch using the add-in right now. What you're doing is you're taking a Compass report, you're exporting it to a workbook you already have set up, you export it to the same sheet every month, and you have various tabs down at the bottom that are set to look at that sheet. But you still have to take the extra step of doing an export each month to get that. So what we can do here is open up a few new columns. Let's highlight column A and B. Let's expand this report a little bit, and we can use these codes, because remember, this could be hidden, this could not be hidden. It depends on if you're reporting on it or not. But we can come back to our data item list and just pull in the codes that we want. So we're doing an income statement. Let's get that income code back in here. We want to get the descriptors. We want to get the expenses in there. We won't do all of the codes, but just so you see, get your data code in there. Go ahead and hit done here, Lana. Now we can come to our cash and due in column A. We're going to go to our category account list, open up our balance sheet, open up our assets, and now we just get to go right on down the line. Cash and due, assign it down. Fed funds, assign it down. Investments, oh look, I need more detail on my investments. Let's open that up. So all you're doing is layering in all of your codes that match back to the account they represent in your descriptors. Now notice we don't have to pull in the descriptors. We're just pulling in the code. Those descriptors already came in with the export. So we'll go ahead and hit done here. You know, you get the gist. You just go on down the line. And then what you do is you go to your first dollar balance, that $10 that you see in there for cash and due. You come to your data wizard, and you already have all the pieces. You've got your dates, your data references, your account codes. Now you're literally just putting in a formula behind this static balance. And as we just saw, we can drag these formulas over, we can drag them down so you don't have to use the wizard every single time. And then go ahead and hit cancel here for me. So that way, no more exporting. You'll have formulas behind every single one of these cells. So all you have to do now is open up your spreadsheet. It automatically pulls in the data. You don't have to keep exporting it if you don't want to. There's one way that we can layer it into something you already have built just by opening up some new columns and pulling in the codes we need for that formula. Okay, last but not least, let's talk about the cash flow workbook. In my live data folder, I have my liquidity template, which I know a lot of you are already familiar with this, but those that aren't, this is an automated liquidity workbook. You see it's processing in the bottom right corner. It takes a little bit to open because it's already pre-built with Compass add-in formulas to pull directly from your Compass plan. We're looking at all of your sources and uses. We're pulling in all of your data that gets you to here, the cash flow model tab, because we all know you need to stress your liquidity. So up at the top is great. Everything's taken care of, sources and uses. What you are responsible for is that stress event. How can we get that automated? Can we even get that automated? We know a lot of stress events have to do with non-maturity deposit runoff, so we're using that for our example today, but again, your stress event could be any type of account you have in there. And probably what you're doing is every quarter or semi-annually when you have to come in here, you reconfigure your new balance sheet numbers, and then you type in whatever that deposit runoff is. So what we're going to do now is we're going to open up a brand new spreadsheet to this workbook, because you can do that. It doesn't hurt anything. We insert a blank sheet. What we're going to do is pull in some data from Compass here. We're going to look for our last update date, because remember, liquidity is as of last month-end actual. So we do want this to update with whatever our download date for is in Compass. Perfect, and it never comes in formatted, so we're going to format it and just choose our generic first date range here. The second thing we want is the data type. We're talking about liquidity here, so we want our end of month balances. So we go to the data list. This is our account projection data, and I know you're all familiar with that EOM balance, so let's pull that in. Now, what accounts do we want in here? So we're doing a non-maturity deposit runoff, so we're going to go to our category account list. We're going to open up our liabilities, open up those interest-bearing deposits, because there's a few categories we want to grab. We're going to start with demand, assign it down, our now account, money market, and savings. We're going to get all those codes in, high-level categories. Let's just get our totals, and now let's pull in the descriptions, because we're not going to remember what all those are next time. Perfect. Now we're going to build in the formula. Let's get these balances in here. So D5 or E5, doesn't matter wherever you want to start, Lana. We're going to go to Compass and choose Data Wizard. Now the data we're referencing is our D code for EOM balance. The date we want is whatever month we're updated through, so we click on that. And the category account reference, we're starting with demand. Now before, we knew when we had to drag this formula down, we had to remove the dollar sign. You don't have to wait until the formula is complete to do that. We can delete this dollar sign right now to immediately unlock that row, so we're ready to drag and drop as soon as we hit OK. Perfect. We're going to click on that. We drag it down. Let's do a quick auto sum. I might be blocking it. Go ahead and just hit that. Okay, perfect. Now we have our total, non-maturing deposits. Excellent. Now what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the cash flow model tab. We're going to start with our first projected month, and we're going to do equals sheet number 2 and click on the total for non-maturity deposits. We're going to times it by -10%. Now I understand yours might not be as simple as that. Maybe you spread it out, but just to show you very quickly now, here is our 10% right out of the box non-maturity deposit runoff. What we could do now is make a copy of this tab. So we'll go ahead and make a copy. We'll check a box to create the copy of it, hit OK. What we're going to do now is up at the top, we're going to rename this to moderate, because we want everyone to know what kind of stress scenario we're looking at. This is moderate stress. This is actually going to be 15% total deposit runoff, so we're going to update our formula for 15. And now we update the description to show, hey, this is going to be a moderate 15% runoff. So you kind of get what we're doing here. You can just keep making copies of this tab. It's already linked to your total volume for non-maturity deposits. Just update your percentages, update your labeling of it each time, and then when we go back to sheet number 2, as long as it's always linked to that total in E9 there, you're always going to have now 10% stress, 15% stress, whatever you want in all of your cash flow model tabs, so you're no longer configuring your new balance sheet composition, recalculating a total, and typing that back in each time. Okay, I know we just threw a lot of information at you. I've seen a lot of good questions come in, so we're going to read through those questions here and get to them in just a moment. But while we're doing that, I'd like to take a quick break and throw a poll out to all of you. I know we just threw some basic information out there real fast, but based off of what you've seen today, do you find that there's a benefit on how you could see this add-in potentially helping you going forward? And that's great. We're going to read through some of your questions here. We want to get all of these lined up so we know what we're looking at. Okay. Perfect. All right, so let me just go ahead and close this poll, and I'm going to share it just so everyone can see how everyone else is answering, how they're all responding. Okay, so let's get to a few of those questions here. All right, so here's the first question coming in. I noticed I saw it on the sheet you just pulled. Every time you pull in a last update date, it always shows up on the month of the day of the 28th. Yes, right here. This is what you're referring to. You are correct. The 28th is a date. It's just a labeling default, something that's built in behind the scenes into Compass. It's not anything that we use to calculate formulas with. If it's 30 days in the month, we know it's 30. If it's 31, the program knows it's 30. It's just a behind the scenes labeling. So last update date, we had to choose a day of the month that all of the months had in common. And I think you know where I'm going with this, February. February only has 28 days. So if we said do a labeling of 30 days, February would get ignored. It's a labeling, again, if it makes it easier, maybe you could build a formula that says look at that and +2, or maybe look at that and +3 or something like that if you want it to be an actual month-end date like that. Or, of course, you can just manually type it in. We know that it'll stay updated based off of whatever month end you just downloaded, but if you don't want to keep doing the +2 or the +3 to show the real month end date, you don't have to. Just manually type that in if that's easier for you. Perfect. So I hope that helped answer your question. Just definitely let me know in that survey at the end if you want to talk more about that. Oh, okay. I see two questions now about this one. This is a very common question. I'm getting this a lot. There's a couple of us over here who work on Compass. We can never seem to share the spreadsheets with each other. We always have to go into one or the other's office to work on them. How can we share the add-in spreadsheets so we don't get a bunch of pop-ups every time we try to open them? We've heard this a few times from multiple people who have the Compass add-in. The way it works is we install the add-in to whatever folder Compass was installed to. So on one of your machines, Compass may have been installed to your program file folder, where another machine, maybe it was installed to program 86. So when you try to share spreadsheets back and forth, the add-in's like, no, I'm sorry, this spreadsheet was built with Compass program files 86. I don't see your add-in in program 86, so I can't read you this report. We have a very easy fix to that. We can create a central folder location. We can put the add-in in one spot that you both have access to, and going forward, you will be able to pass spreadsheets back and forth because you both have the add-in installed to the same place. So if that sounds like you, if you've run into that issue before where you can't seem to share spreadsheets, definitely please let us know. We'll talk about how to get one central location for your add-in installed. Okay, so that's great. That is about all of the questions we have for right now. I just want to let you guys know about a few things that we have coming up. You probably got the email from me earlier this week. Our last Compass Roundtable was so amazing. It was so great. I did not want to wait until December to have another one. So I thought maybe at the end of August might be a good time to throw another one in. So we would love to have you in. If you can make it to Schaumburg August 25th, please come join us at the roundtable, talk to other Compass users, other people who are in the same boat as you are. We can discuss what we're going through, how we accomplish it, the resources we use, how does one person do something versus another. It's a really great place just to learn, take a break from the office for the day, and get to know some other Compass users. So definitely love to have you in there. Next month, we're going to do a model housekeeping lunch and learn. We know budgeting is coming up. It's coming up fast, so it's just a few things you can take a look at in your Compass plan to make sure you have things all squared away before you start your budgeting process. And then in October, you'll be able to visit with Roxanne when she does her annual Budgeting Best Practices webinar. So we got a lot of great things coming at you. Look out on your emails for those. But as you know, of course, call us, email us, fill out some information in that survey. If you have any additional questions, we'll make sure to get back to you. Thank you so much, everyone, for participating today. Thank you for joining us. We hope to see you next time. Take care.